Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go.
I'm so sorry, Reese.
No! Fire!
Did you know that John Hurt made an interactive erotic thriller called Tender Loving Care 22 years ago? It was a movie about a worried husband who hires a beautiful psychiatrist to nurse his delusional wife and help her deal with the death of their child in a car accident.
Beautiful house, isn't it?
No? Well, to be honest, I wouldn't blame you. It wasn't really an interactive movie at all, as opposed to a collection of FMV segments interspersed with a series of tests for the viewer to partake in. Quite literally, your DVD player became a psychiatrist to you, progressively accumulating a personal psychological profile of the viewer. Who needs Rorschach tests, right, when you have John Hurt secretly performing the Voight-Kampff test on you?
Time is a factor in this, so please pay attention. Now answer as quickly as you can.
We've come a long way since then, and with the 2018 Black Mirror episode Bandersnatch, the interactive film is clawing its way back into the public consciousness. Wells Interactive are doing a great job at the moment of rebirthing the genre and running with it, and their growing collection of stories revolving around this mechanic is not something to be sniffed at. The Bunker, The Shape-Shifting Detective, and Late Shift have all incorporated the plan of blurring the lines between film and games. But can their latest offering, The Complex, push this genre into the mainstream? For those unfamiliar with the genre, FMV games are pretty much the video game equivalent of the Choose Your Own Adventure or fighting fantasy books, where you'd read to the end of the page and then, based on multiple choices, control the destination of the character. The aim was to make the reader feel like they were directly in control of the main protagonist's fate, and sometimes this would end in triumph or tragedy, but mostly tragedy, as more often than not there would be only one clear path to having the true ending, so you'd spend countless hours flicking back and forth between the pages if you found yourself making a wrong decision. In live-action video form, this gives you the feeling of being the director, and in Late Shift, for example, your decisions influence the main character's personality, so you could make him a shy wussy boy or a bloodthirsty uber-criminal who gets right into the thick of the action. The Complex starts off in Southeast Asia, where we meet Dr. Amy Tenant and Dr. Wakefield. Treating the victims of a chemical attack in the totalitarian state of Kindar, we're presented with our first moral dilemma. There are two patients in the tent, one a pregnant woman and one a young boy. They both go into anaphylactic shock, but we only have one vial of magic nanocell treatment that will save their life.
Nanomachine, son!
Dr. Wakefield skedaddles and leaves Amy to deal with the life-changing decision by herself. What a guy, right? We skip 5 years later, and now in London, Dr. Tennant is given a presentation to gather funding for her nanocell technology
Nanomachine.
that will regrow bones and treat wounds.
Oh-wee! Is Kindar still a totalitarian state? Human rights violations and all that shit?
During her speech, however, news breaks of a member of staff falling ill on the underground, and it appears that some of the scientific advancements that have been researched in the labs has gotten out. Reluctantly reuniting with the doctor that deserted her 5 years previous, Amy becomes trapped in the impenetrable HQ of laboratories and must find a way to save the dying girl, the cowardly Dr. Wakefield, and herself. In a strange way, the release of The Complex couldn't have come out at a more surreal time. With everyone in lockdown at the moment watching films on Netflix like Outbreak and Pandemic, the scene of the young girl vomiting blood on a train carriage resonated with an ominous and eerie real-world potency. So for those that want to continue devouring all the post-apocalyptic and virus outbreak-type shenanigans, The Complex would be a nice addition to the catalogue. The Complex is written by Lynn Renee Maxey, part of the Emmy Award-winning writing team for The Handmaid's Tale. For the most part, certain scenarios that Dr. Amy Tenant faces seem well constructed, and some of the choices that you make throughout the game may seem arbitrary or trivial, such as when a colleague gets knifed in the leg, for example, you can either tell him a joke or slap him in order to distract him from taking out the knife.
Oh, this is gonna stink. Ah! The fuck? Ah!
Other decisions, though, seem a little random. In one instance, Amy has to make a choice to get past the vent cover. The two options available are either using a microscope, which would be crude, or using a scalpel, which would be the delicate option. Thinking that the scalpel would be too obvious, I was intrigued to find out how the microscope option would pan out. And thinking that it wouldn't work, Amy proceeds to bash the vent cover with the microscope until it just breaks away. Okay then. Much as the way in life, just bash something until it breaks.
Nanomachines.
Perhaps the other option of using the scalpel would have created a branching pathway that led me elsewhere or caused my relationship to strengthen with one of the other characters, but I honestly couldn't see how this would. And yes, apparently your decisions made throughout the duration of the game will have a knock-on effect with the other characters. The complex boasts of using a relationship tracker, so depending on interactions you make throughout the game, other characters will allegedly trust you or become suspicious of you. The relationship scores are calculated from the start right through to the very end, and will affect certain scenarios as well as having major consequences in the concluding scenes. However, I get the impression that this is mainly superficial icing on the cake rather than a fundamental game mechanic. A similar effect was created in the game Amnesia: The Dark Descent. The developers wanted players to feel like they had the illusion of choice, so with Amnesia, the insanity mechanic was born and is probably the most criticised element of the game. It had been frequently touted as superfluous, simplistic, as an idea that had potential, but that was never explored in a satisfying manner. In some ways, these critics were correct. You see, in the game, the insanity meter didn't really matter in the end. The elevation of your insanity level couldn't kill you, nor was there any way to bring it back down. So when the insanity meter reaches its zenith in-game, a short scripted sequence was triggered where the player would fall over, would breathe loudly, and then experience distorted vision. If a monster was in the vicinity, it may be attracted by the noise you made, but if not, the player simply rose to his feet in short order, with some sanity recovered and no other consequences imposed. It's easy to see why some thought the whole thing pointless, but it added to the tension of the game, and I have the feeling that this could be the same for the complex. I mean, I could be completely wrong. I got one of the bad endings of the game, so perhaps taking the crude, callous choices throughout wasn't the smartest of plans.
I'm so sorry, Reese.
Whereas Late Shift's production value was somewhere between a TV movie and a B movie, the complex aims high with an independent vibe. Granted, most of the action takes place in the lab and it's by no means an all-star cast, but a lot of acting can be quite stiff and unbelievable in these types of interactive films. But the acting on show here is slick and does well to add to the escapism. Some of the green screen effects and CGI on display are a little too obvious and pulls you out of the drama unfolding, but the choices you make and the pacing seem to add together to form a complete and satisfying narrative each time, with the scenes interchanging seamlessly. Thanks to the interactive technology, Dr. Tennant's fate is in your hands, so you'll always want to keep those hands near your mouse or controller. Each decision must be made in mere seconds, and these choices could mean the difference between life or death for those on screen. Personally, I would have liked to have had just a couple more seconds for the decision-making process, as I think I was so engrossed in the events unfolding that a few choices were made on my behalf because I didn't get to my mouse in time. But overall, I had a really enjoyable experience with Wells Interactive's The Complex. I know that there's a toggle switch to pause the choice option for improved audience participation during live streams, but in my opinion this would have cut the tension of the drama, and I'm a massive fan of having that cut the red wire or blue wire mentality. My first run through clocked in over an hour and 20 minutes, but the beauty in its length is to encourage replayability. There are supposedly 8 different endings to The Complex, some would be good and some would be bad. I'm the type of person that needs a while to have the experience marinate before I head back in and rewatch the same cutscenes again, so for now I'll have to accept my lackluster ending.
Nanomachine.
But I guess that's the main point here really. Do you want to play a game or be told a story? For the completionists amongst us, I guess it will be the former. I may wait another week or two before revisiting Dr. Amy Tenant's lab of nanocells to try and get the best ending possible. You wouldn't speak.
Nanocells.
Stem
Nanocells.
cells.
Interwoven with nanotech. Once
Snake.
inside a host, they...
You might not be a fan of the interactive movie on display here, but respect must be paid to Wells Interactive for continually improving the FMV genre and breaking new ground with the technology available to us at the time of reviewing. I hope their next effort is as bold as The Complex and leads the way for the next resurgence of this type of gaming format.
Is he doing drugs in the bogs? 'Cause he's a London lad.
Nope, he's just having a panic attack.
Nanomachine. Nanomachines. Nanomachines. Nanomachine. Nanomachine. Asshole. Meryl, marry me.